reassuring smile as he stepped away from the checkout lane. "I forgot one thing. I'll meet you by the car." I nodded, completely trusting him, and handed my credit card to the cashier. But those few minutes stretched into 10, then 20, and his phone went straight to voicemail. As panic started to tighten its grip around my chest, the elderly store employee who had been watching me from the electronics counter walked over. Her face was completely drained of color, her eyes darting nervously toward the exit. She leaned in close, pretending to hand me a receipt, and whispered in a trembling voice, "Ma'am, do not look around, and please come with me right now. Your husband didn't go to the car, and your life is in danger if you stay here." That single whisper shattered my world forever. My name is Emily Harrington, and I am 34 years old. If you had asked me back then to describe my life, I would have told you it was an absolute dream. I had been married to my husband, Julian, for 7 wonderful years. To everyone in our quiet suburban neighborhood, we were the gold standard of a perfect couple. Julian was incredibly charming, deeply attentive, and ran a successful logistics business that kept us more into our weekends gardening, and were planning for our future. Before we dive deeper into how that dream turned into a terrifying nightmare, please take a brief moment to name of the city you are watching from today. I would truly love to see how far my voice and this story have reached. It was a completely ordinary Saturday afternoon when the cracks in my perfect life began to show. We had driven over to a massive, sprawling home improvement store on the edge of town to pick up supplies for a backyard renovation project. The sun was shining, the store was bustling with weekend shoppers, and Julian was his usual cheerful self, cracking jokes and helping me load cedar planks into our oversized shopping cart. There was absolutely no indication that within the hour, the man I had loved and trusted for nearly a decade would vanish, leaving me in the crosshairs of a dangerous secret. The cashier began scanning our items, the rhythmic beeping of the register filling the air as I pulled out my wallet. Julian had been gone for barely a minute, but an uneasy feeling suddenly gripped me. I looked over my shoulder, expecting to see his familiar silhouette walking back down the main aisle with whatever tool he had forgotten, but the wide corridor was empty. The minutes began to tick away, heavy and agonizing. 5 minutes became 10. The cashier finished bagging the smaller items and looked at me expectantly, holding out the payment terminal. Trying to mask the rising anxiety in my voice, I told her my husband would be right back with one last item. I stepped out of the queue, pulling out my phone to call Julian. It rang once, twice, and then cut off abruptly, sending me straight to an automated voicemail. My heart did a sudden, violent flip. Julian never turned off his phone, especially not when we were out together. I dialed again, but the result was exactly the same. I began pacing near the front glass windows, scanning the busy parking lot outside. His car was sitting exactly where we had parked it, glistening under the afternoon sun, completely unoccupied. The normal, cheerful midday hum of the store suddenly felt suffocatingly loud. Every stranger's face blurred together as a strange, icy panic began to tighten its grip around my chest, telling me that something was deeply, terribly wrong. Martha, the elderly employee, didn't give me a chance to ask questions. Her hand gripped my forearm with surprising strength as she guided me away from the bright checkout lanes and down a restricted hallway marked employees only. My legs felt like lead, my mind racing with a million terrifying possibilities as she swiped a keycard and pushed open a heavy, secure door. We stepped into a windowless, clinical-looking security office. The walls were lined with glowing monitors displaying live feeds from dozens of cameras scattered throughout the massive store and its surrounding parking lots. Martha quickly locked the door behind us, her breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. She turned to me, her eyes filled with genuine pity. "Look at screen number 4, Emily," she whispered, pointing a trembling finger toward a monitor in the corner. The camera was pointed at a dimly lit, secluded loading dock at the very back of the facility, a place completely hidden from regular customers. My eyes strained against the flickering light of the screen, and then my breath caught in my throat. There, standing next to a massive commercial dumpster, was Julian. He wasn't looking for a forgotten tool, and he certainly wasn't heading toward our car. He was deep in conversation with a tall, heavily built man wearing a dark leather jacket and a low-set baseball cap. The sheer coldness on Julian's face froze the blood in my veins. The warm, loving husband I had eaten breakfast with just hours ago was completely gone. In his place stood a calculating stranger, looking over his shoulder with predatory alertness as the mysterious man handed him a thick, heavily taped package. I watched in absolute silence as Julian took the heavy package, his movements practiced and devoid of any hesitation. The stranger then pulled a thick manila envelope from his jacket and slid it across the metal table. Julian opened it slightly, revealing tight stacks of $100 bills, before nodding and tucking it into his coat. My hands flew to my mouth, tears stinging my eyes. The logistics business he supposedly ran, the late-night conference calls, the sudden weekend business trips, it was all an elaborate lie. Martha changed the feed, pulling up an archive folder on the computer. "He's been doing this here for 6 months, Emily," she said softly, her voice filled with heavy sadness. "Our store sits right off the main interstate. The massive foot traffic, the chaotic layout, and the blind spots in our loading docks make it the perfect cover for a drop point. He thought nobody was watching, but our security team noticed the pattern weeks ago. We've been documenting every single transaction." She brought up a spreadsheet on the split screen, showing a list of commercial accounts, heavy equipment rentals, and credit lines. Every single one of them was registered under a shell corporation, but as Martha scrolled down to the guarantor information, my heart completely stopped. Printed in clean, digital text was my full legal name, my social security number, and my signature. Julian hadn't just built a secret, dangerous criminal enterprise right under my nose. He had systematically forged my identity to build the entire financial framework for it. If the authorities raided this operation, or if one of these dangerous illicit deals went sideways, the paper trail wouldn't lead to Julian's doorstep. It would lead directly to me. He wasn't just hiding a double life from me. He was actively setting me up to take the fall for his crimes while he prepared to vanish with millions. The realization that my own husband was setting me up to take the fall for his crimes paralyzed me for a moment, but then a cold, fierce anger took over. I looked at Martha, the tears drying on my face. "I won't let him destroy my life," I whispered. Martha nodded, a determined look in eyes. She explained that the store's corporate security team had already contacted a federal investigator who was specializing in corporate fraud and illicit smuggling. They had been waiting for the perfect moment to catch Julian with the physical evidence on him, and that moment was right now. Martha picked up the desk phone and dialed an internal extension, alerting the undercover officers stationed in the main parking lot. My task was to walk back out to the checkout area and act as if nothing had happened, keeping Julian calm and contained so he wouldn't spook and flee before the trap snapped shut. When I stepped back into the bright retail lights, my legs were shaking, but I forced a calm smile onto my face. A few minutes later, Julian strolled up from the back aisles, adjusting his jacket over the thick envelope hidden inside. "Sorry, honey, couldn't find what I needed," he said smoothly, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. We walked out through the automatic sliding doors together into the warm afternoon air. But as we reached our vehicle, 3 unmarked black SUVs swerved into the lane, completely blocking our car. Heavily armed federal agents stepped out, badges gleaming in the sun, their weapons drawn and focused directly on my husband. Julian's confident smile instantly vanished, replaced by pure terror. The high-stakes legal battle that followed was grueling, but it culminated inside a cold, formal federal courtroom 3 months later. Julian sat at the defense table beside his high-priced attorneys, trying to maintain his trademark confident composure. His defense team had spent weeks trying to exploit legal loopholes, arguing that the shell companies and forged signatures were part of an identity theft scheme carried out by an unknown third party, attempting to leave me holding the blame for the fraudulent credit lines. They actually smiled as they presented their opening arguments, believing they had successfully muddied the waters enough to secure his freedom. But their smiles completely vanished when my legal team, working in perfect synchronization with the federal investigators, stood up to present our evidence. We submitted the unedited, crystal-clear security footage from the home improvement store's loading dock, explicitly showing the physical cash exchanges. Following that, We laid out the forensic financial trails that tracked the illicit funds moving directly into a hidden offshore account Julian had established solely under his control. The final blow came when Martha took the stand, delivering her unwavering eyewitness testimony. Julian's lead attorney turned completely pale as he reviewed the overwhelming mountain of evidence. He leaned over and whispered frantically to his client, whose face had drained of all color. The judge didn't hesitate, handing down a maximum sentence for grand larceny, wire fraud, and identity theft. Julian was led away in handcuffs, facing total financial ruin and a long prison sentence, while I walked out of that courtroom a completely free woman. 3 months after the final verdict, I used the remaining clean assets from our estate to liquidate the fraudulent debts and moved to a beautiful, quiet cottage near the coast. Julian's high-priced lifestyle was entirely built on quicksand, but thanks to the forensic tracking, I managed to reclaim my financial security and rebuild my life entirely on my own terms. Today, I proudly run the Emily Harrington Foundation for Marital Justice, an organization dedicated to providing comprehensive legal aid and financial education to women who have survived severe identity theft and marital deception. Now, I am deeply curious about all of you who have followed my journey until the very end. What would you have done if you found yourself in my shoes at that checkout counter? Have you, or anyone you know, ever uncovered a shocking secret about someone you trusted? On the final screen. They are packed with unexpected twists and will definitely surprise you. Thank you so